groundwater and geospatial technology, how the geospatial technology can be very beneficial for groundwater monitoring. So as we all know that in Uttar Pradesh, we are celebrating Bhujal Saptah, a groundwater week from 16 July to 22nd July. So in this session, I'm going to discuss about the groundwater and how the geospatial technology is becoming very beneficial for the groundwater management. So as we all know, the Earth is a watery place, a watery planet, and among all the planets, Earth is the only planet where the water is available. So about 71% of Earth's surface is water covered, and the ocean holds about 97% of all Earth's water. So water also exists in the air as water vapor in rivers and lakes, in ice caps and glaciers, in the ground as soil moisture and in aquifers, and it is also present in all the living organisms including plants, animals and human beings. So among 100% of water that is present on the Earth's surface, 97% is in the oceans and only 3% is the fresh water. Among these 3%, 79% is in the ice caps and glaciers, and 20% is in groundwater, and 1% is accessible surface fresh water. So among these accessible fresh water, surface fresh water, 52% is in the lakes, water within the living organism is 1%, rivers is 1%, water vapor 8%, and soil moisture is 38%. So as we see that every water is present everywhere, but most of the water is either salty, that we cannot use for the drinking purpose or for the agricultural purpose, and or the water is in the ice caps, or the water is not accessible. So a very limited amount of water is accessible to us for the drinking and irrigation and for the various purposes. So if we see how much water is present in the atmosphere, in the oceans, so it is 12.7 cubic kilometer of air per year is exchanged. So evaporation, transpiration includes 74,000 cubic kilometer per year. Then the permafrost is there, soil moisture accounts for 122, groundwater accounts for 15,300. So the surface flow is 40, and this is how the groundwater is distributed all over the planet in the form of water vapor, in the form of water, in the form of groundwater. So hydrological cycle, that is a very important cycle, and this is hydrological cycle is also a closed cycle, because the water is circulating from one source to another source. So what is hydrological cycle? So the hydrological cycle of the earth is the sum total of all processes in which water moves from the land and ocean surface to the atmosphere and back in the form of precipitation. So, and various processes are involved in hydrological cycle. First one is the evaporation. For the evaporation, we need solar energy power and solar energy that powers the cycle. Heat energy from the sun causes evaporation from the water surfaces like river, lakes and oceans, and also from the plants in the form of transpiration. So transpiration is essentially evaporation of water from plant leaves, and evapotranspiration is the water loss of the atmosphere from plants and water surfaces. So the next process is the condensation. So in condensation, the warm moist air rises, and as it cools, condensation takes place to form clouds. Then the advection. Advection means when wind energy may move clouds over land surfaces. Next process is the precipitation. Precipitation occurs either as rain or snow depending on the altitude. Then the runoff or overland flow. The run water flows either over the ground into the river and back to the ocean. Groundwater flow is when water infiltrates downwards through the soil and rocks, where it is returned to the ocean through the groundwater flow. This is how it happens. It infiltrates into the groundwater, and through the groundwater it returns to the ocean. Then this is the how the groundwater flow takes place. Groundwater takes place through the base flow, and it goes into the ocean. So the water cycle balance. How the water cycle balance? Usually the water cycle is in balance, and the amount of precipitation falling will slowly soak into the ground and eventually reaches the river. However, if rain falls for a long period of time, and if the ground is already soaked or saturated with water, then the chance of flooding increases. So the hydrological cycle is a good example of a closed system. The total amount of water is the same, with the virtually no water added to or lost from the cycle. So water just moves from one storage type to another, and water evaporating from the ocean is balanced by water being returned through precipitation and surface runoff. So as we see that hydrological cycle is a closed cycle, that means there is no loss of water. And as we are saying, many times we are listening that the water is the water level is decreasing. That is just because of the human impact on the water. So let's begin. What is aquifer? So aquifer is also called groundwater. Aquifer is a water bearing formation, mainly the rock. It is also known as water bearing rock. Then what is groundwater? The water retained in the intergranular core or the soil or fissures or rock below the water table is called groundwater. So what is recharge? The process of surface water from drain or reservoir joining the groundwater aquifer. So why we are discussing these terms? Because these terms are very important in the groundwater. Then what is artificial recharge? Any man-made scheme or facility that adds water to an aquifer is called the artificial recharge system. Water table is the level of the water within 8 granular pores of soil or fissures of rock, below which the pores of the soil are saturated. Then the runoff. Runoff is the term applied to the water that flows away from a surface water after falling on the surface in the form of the rain. Let's see some of the basic of groundwater. Groundwater is only available when the rock is porous and permeable. So the porosity of a rock is the measure of its ability to hold a fluid. So let's take one example. If you drop water on your table, it will not soak because maybe your table is not porous or permeable. So permeability is the property of rock that is an indication of the ability for fluids to flow through rocks. High permeability will allow fluids to move rapidly through the rocks. So permeability is affected by the pressure in the rock. Then these are some of the terms that are related with the groundwater. That is effluent stream. The stream which receives discharge from the water table is called as effluent stream, whereas influent stream is the stream recharges water to the zone of saturation is called the influent stream. Let's come to the aquifer, because the groundwater that is present on the earth's surface is mainly in the form of aquifers. It may be and so the aquifer may be defined as a formation that contains sufficient saturated permeable material to yield significant quantities of water to wells and springs. So there are two types of aquifers. One is the unconfined aquifer and the second one is the confined aquifer. So unconfined aquifers are those in which water seeps from the ground surface directly above the aquifer, whereas the confined aquifers are underlain by confined layers and is separated from atmosphere by impermeable layer. Then there are many other terms related with the aquifer, that is aquiclude. So aquiclude is a subsurface rock, soil or sediment unit that does not yield useful quantities of water. Then aquitard, aquifuge and leaky aquifers are also associated with the groundwater. So let's see the human impacts, human inputs to the cycle. Although this is a closed system, there is a natural balance maintained between the exchange of water within the system. Human activities have the potential to lead to changes in the balance, which will have knock-on impacts. For example, the earthworms due to global warming. The rate of exchange in the cycle between land and sea and atmosphere is expected to increase. So some aspects of the hydrological cycle can be utilized by humans for a direct economic benefit. For example, generation of electricity. So hydroelectric power stations and the reservoirs. And these are effectively huge artificial lakes, and this will disrupt river hydrology. You can see huge dams are built. So for the generation of hydroelectricity. there are many other human activities also that have impacted the hydrological cycle, like the paving, compacting soils, and altering the nature of the vegetation, including deforestation. Then the mining of groundwater for use in agriculture and industry. Then the large amount of water vapor released in the atmosphere from industrial activity, large changes in vegetation by wildlife, lodging, clearance for agriculture. So these are some of the activities that are that have a great impact on the hydrological cycle, like the pavement in the houses where everything is like metalled one. So the groundwater recharge, how the groundwater recharge will take place when we have cemented roads, even our garden or the places that are open in our houses are also cemented. So how the groundwater is recharged naturally. So we are creating hindrance in the groundwater recharges. Then the impacts. So the human activities can lead to increased chances of flooding, increase in soil erosion, and a cooling effect on the northwest of Europe, that is a climate change. Then possible higher precipitation levels in the Arctic but less in the tropics. So these are all the impacts that are that we will have when we are creating hindrance in the water cycle. So let's see the potential application of remote sensing in the field of water resources. So first of all, the water management in command areas where the surface water or wetland studies may be carried out. Then the mapping of waterlogged areas. Then identification of drainage, congestion and drainage plan development. Integrated water resource action plans. Baseline data generation for new projects. Environmental monitoring programs. Irrigation systems performance evaluation. Then the flooding, inundation mapping and other studies. Snow melt studies, groundwater targeting, water harvesting and artificial recharge, river dynamics, reservoir sedimentation. So these are some of the potential applications of remote sensing in the field of water. So in this lecture, I'm going to discuss about the data groundwater targeting and the groundwater prospect mapping. So the data requirement for groundwater targeting. In this slide, how we are using the remote sensing, whether the remote sensing can provide data for the following type of data or not, and what other data can we are going to use for the groundwater targeting. First one is the geology or lithology. Remote sensing can provide data for it. For the geomorphology also, the remote sensing they can provide data for the geological structures like faults, fracture. Remote sensing data is used, and for the mapping of surface water bodies status, we can take the two season data like Rabi and Kharif data for the mapping of surface water bodies. Then watershed physiography is also can be mapped using the remote sensing data. Then the drainage pattern can also be extracted using the remote sensing data. Then soil also. But for the slope, we can use the Survey of India topo sheets, and also we can use the remote sensing data like Cartosat data is there, from which we can prepare the digital elevation models. Then the rainfall data can be collected from the IMD or the revenue departments. Then groundwater level fluctuation and quantity. This data can be collected from the groundwater department. Then transportation network. This type of data will be available in Survey of India topo sheets, and this can be updated using the remote sensing data. Then the settlement location and village boundaries. This can be made using the Survey of India topo sheets and the census data. And the socioeconomic data, for socioeconomic data, we will be using the Census of India data or other sources. So the sources required for mapping the groundwater potential zones. First is the Survey of India topo sheets on 1:50,000 scale, then the remote sensing satellite data, then the lithological maps. That we can collect the lithological maps from the Geological Survey of India. Then the interpretation of satellite imageries and field visits and surveys are also an important part of groundwater mapping or management. So the existing geological and geomorphological maps are also used. So this is how the satellite data looks like, and we can easily extract the geomorphological features from the satellites. And like this also we can prepare the geological structures maps and the lithological maps, soil maps. So the groundwater mapping prospect zones, the methodology of groundwater prospect maps involves preliminary interpretation of satellite data using the visual interpretation technique. Then the field verification is done and the collection of ground data is being done using the GPS, that is Global Positioning System. Then the final interpretation is done and the digitization and other data integration will take place. And lastly, the generation of groundwater prospects map is done. So these are some of the examples of lithology, how we can identify the lithological features on the satellite images. So some structures are there, like a fault is there. So this is how we can interpret the structural features using the satellite images. Then the hydrological features can also be identified using the satellite images, like here is a lake and the rivers and the many surface features, surface water bodies can be identified using the satellite images. So this is how the final groundwater prospect map will look like. We can give different symbol to it, so that one prospect zone can be distinguished from the other prospect zone. So let's see, remote sensing technology has how many potentials to provide. First of all, the water spread area, then the water physical quality, pollution, this can be also identified. Then the water depth, water surface temperature, soil moisture, snow surface area, groundwater indicators, and floods. Remote sensing serves two more purposes in GIS-based water resource management tools. One is the satellite image, makes ideal base maps upon which all other GIS layers are put into a common geographic perspective. And the second one is the satellite information is used to populate the GIS features and objects that can be located and identified in the imagery. So now we are using remote sensing, GIS and GPS, that is geospatial technology, for the groundwater management very efficiently. Thank you.